Let's get some reaction to this breaking news on Britain's economy. With me now is Bridget Rosewell, one of Britain's most influential economists. Bridget has worked as a special advisor to the Treasury Select Committee and is currently the consultant chief economic advisor at the Greater London Authority and founder of financial firm Volterra. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. These figures are good news, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes. I think that what happens when you get a recovery, once it begins to take hold, then you do get very surprising numbers. Just as a recession takes people by surprise, so does recovery.
Yeah. Now, I suppose the question is that although business is getting better, what are businesses going to do with that money? Are they going to pump it back into their businesses, and are we going to see more growth? Or, having had the shock of the recession, are they going to use it to pay down debt?
Well, we've already seen substantial paying down of debt, both by businesses and indeed by consumers, who are also saving more and paying back mortgage debt and so on. So has been going on and was going on in this last quarter, which after all ended, a month ago now, nearly. So that has also been going on while this recovery has been taking place. So as it gets more bedded in and people get more confidence, then you can stop hanging on to the cash so desperately and begin to make the investment. It's the investment figures that we really need to look at here. We've now just got the flash. What we actually need eventually, we don't yet have the breakdown into consumption, investment and so on. It's the investment one I'm particularly interested in.
And the investment also means more jobs, doesn't it?
Exactly. Eventually, not immediately, but that's the driver for more growth. And more growth also means you can get more tax revenue in without having to mess around with increasing taxes. It just comes in normally.
Indeed. Now, you were one of the economists who was pro the idea of bringing in more austerity measures. They've now been brought in by George Osborne. How happy are you with what he did in that emergency budget?
I'm pretty happy, actually. I was happy in two respects, in fact. One is that it was a budget report I could read and understand. That was a great relief.
for all of us.
Exactly. But also that the measures seem to me to have the right kind of balance. Mostly spending cuts, not tax rises. Of course, the tax rises will hit a little bit before the spending cuts begin to get in. But I think this sort of panic about, millions of jobs are going to be lost is completely overdone. It's going to take ages for all of that to really happen.
And is there an argument that says, well, with these good growth figures, we didn't really need all those austerity cuts because we're kind of doing it all on our own?
No, I think that's completely wrong. The whole problem is that a lot of these cuts are actually because we went into this recession with such a high deficit, and that's why it all became so difficult. We've got to deal with the structural deficit effectively come hell or high water.
And how concerned are you that these cuts will actually dent this growth? I mean, it's a very big figure, 1.1. It's very good news for everybody. The pound apparently is soaring on this news, as you might expect. But are we likely to see this continue, or do you think that when those austerity measures really cut in, we're going to see a bit of a dip?
I'm sure we will see a bit of a dip, but I think a lot of those measures won't cut in. Some of them will cut in immediately, but most of them will take a little bit of time. It isn't a complete sort of, scorched earth that's going on out there. So by the time some of these cut in, the recovery will be even more established. And I think it's the confidence in the private sector and for the private sector to feel there's business to be done that really matters.
Now, we're also looking at bank stress tests coming out a little bit later on today. Just how stressful do you think those tests have been?
Well, it's not... I mean, two problems about it. One is how stressful have they been for the banks, but the other point is how stressful do the markets think they've been for the banks. And I think that's really where my worry is, that there's a huge amount of financing that needs to get rolled over inside the banks to maintain their funding. And for me, that's the real risk for double dip. It's not to do with the public sector. It's to do with the continuing financing of banks and credit. That's where we really need it. So my worry is how the markets respond to these numbers,
and
whether they think they're stressed. And I am concerned. I'm concerned the markets won't believe the numbers.
OK, well, we're going to find out more about that later on today. Thank you very much indeed for joining.